Welcome back to Cult Pop. I'm your host, Jim Hall, and we have a very special Halloween spectacular here on Cult Pop. We're here in Livonia at Scary Scott's Haunted Attraction. It's an incredible haunted house. We're going to run through this with you a little bit later on in the show and have a real fun time there. We also have horror author Barry Brickey, and he's got a great new novel out called The Silence. It's a real nail-biter. It's something really scary. You're going to want to read this holiday season, so I want you to stay tuned for more Cult Pop. Welcome back to Cult Pop. As I told you at the beginning of the show, we've got a great horror-themed show today. And what we're going to jump right into right now is a local horror author who wrote a great book, The Silence. The author's name is Barry Brickey, and he's done a great job writing a haunted house horror novel, which is just absolutely fantastic. Barry, so glad to have you on today.
Appreciate it, Jim. Thanks for having me.
The Silence is a great, it reminds me of an old-time horror book from the 50s, 60s, where it harkens back to the haunted house tales where people come back. Let's get into how the book starts.
Right.
Book starts off with a family that's unsuspecting coming up from Florida into Michigan to relocate to this beautiful farmhouse.
Correct.
They're ecstatic to move into the house, and it's a mother's son, and just a wonderful situation, a beautiful house. They're unaware of a horrific history that accompanies this house. So I'm going to start there, and without giving too much, I don't want to give too much away.
Sure.
You tell us what you can say about The Silence.
Sure, no problem. As you mentioned, it's about a mother and her two young children, 15-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son, and she leaves an abusive relationship. The marriage is crumbling. She's trying to leave that. She's moving closer to her brother, and she's found the perfect farmhouse, so she thinks. And they relocate. Life's going great for her. She finds a work in the town, small little community, a fishing port, and unbeknownst to her, things start happening that the children start witnessing. Certain paranormal incidents start off, and the children are a little bit freaked out by, especially the young boy, and he's imploring to his mother that, hey, something's strange about this house. I'm not making.
He's having bad
up.
dreams. He's having reoccurring nightmares.
Nightmares. He's being, not to give away too much, but he's being approached by certain spirits that are very interested in him for particular reasons. And also the daughter starts to witness these things. So she's getting kind of scared to death about this. And the mother, after talking with the children, seems to believe that the move is traumatic to them, that the breakup of the marriage is affecting the children, and particularly her son adjusting to a new lifestyle.
Now, this is giving too much away, I think, because it's within about the first 50 or 60 pages, well, about 70 pages, we start to realize, 50 pages, that there's a history to this house, and it's pretty bad. And it has to do with the son of all these families that have lived there. Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about that and the bad things that go along with that?
Yeah, exactly. There's a dark history to this house. The house is it's been around for a century, and every parent that seems to move in this house, strange happenings happen with their sons. And there's in the community, there's speculation with a neighboring an elder man seems to think that he's involved with some of these killings that have been going on. Mm-hmm. And so the plot thickens as the mother tries to do research what's going on with this place, and the hermit kind of comes out and has to proclaim his innocence in this.
Well, it's a great book, and as I said at the opening of the show, for the fall season, especially the Halloween type season, this is just a great book to put you in the Halloween and the scary type mood. We've got a lot of horror fans that watch the show, so I know that hopefully a lot of people order this book. This is going to be right up their alley. But we've got an interesting side note to this book, and although it's a work of fiction, and it's a completely work of fiction, you have based a lot of this on actual life events here in Michigan that you have knowledge of.
Right.
And can we talk a little bit about that?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, the main reason this book developed was originally my friend's family owned this farmhouse, and when I was in my early teens, I used to go over there to visit with them. And right off the bat, I was kind of thrown right into the fire as far as one time I went in there, the family wasn't home. I walked inside the house, and I'm inside the living room. It's a hot summer day, and all of a sudden the room is freezing cold. And at that time I had no experience with anything paranormal. I'm standing in the living room, and above in the bedroom upstairs, I could hear footsteps going across the floor. And there were solid footsteps. It wasn't just creaking. All the way across one side of the room, back to the other. So naturally I thought my friend was up there, and I ran up the stairs calling out for him, looking around. No one was in the bedroom, so I went to subsequent bedrooms to see if anyone was up there. The room was empty. So I went downstairs, and after realizing I was alone in the house, I started to call a neighbor thinking that someone was there. And as I'm down the phone, I could hear footsteps coming down the stairs. Just the floorboards were creaking, and I was out of there. But
wow,
that was the first time, and it just built on after that.
Well, I was so enthused to have you on the show today, Barry, because I've had guests on that, well, I've done a lot of historical reading for this book, I've done this or that, but although, again, I state that this is a work of fiction, you've got a lot of firsthand knowledge, and then you have stayed in touch, and you've kind of become a historian, if you will, of this particular house.
Right.
And we're kind of fortunate to be the first people that have been let into the house to actually tape after people have lived there, and you were nice enough to let my director Jerry in. So we're going to have some video showing throughout the show, showing the different rooms and stuff where some of this paranormal activity has occurred. So let's talk a little bit more about throughout the years. When you were young, you had these events happen. Now you've also followed events throughout the decades, I guess.
Right. I've always had a fascination with the house. Ever since those years that I spent in there, I always told the family, and for myself, I always wanted to write a story based on it. It was just so unique and so traumatic. I mean, I was traumatized as a kid just going through it. I mean, it really built on my fears. But it was just, through the years, you would always, the house is very renowned in that area. People, it will get to the point where people just go over there to stay, just to witness things.
Wow.
And so each decade, I would always keep track to see what was going on there. And after several years, I actually ran into a girl, and I was talking to her, and she mentioned straight up that we were talking about places that were haunted, and she goes, I grew up in a house that was haunted. I'm like, really? And so she starts telling me all the similar things that sounded very familiar to me. And it turns out she was actually living in that house as a young girl.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then after I had completed the book, I was contacted by a woman and her niece, and she mentioned to me, she says, I'm having I heard about, you wrote a story about this house, and I'm actually renting the place now. And we're constantly having problems in this house, and we're scared. I've got young children, and so she began to tell me things that were happening, and it was just, I got goosebumps hearing the things she was mentioning. I mean, her dryer would turn on, the TV would come on by itself. Some of the eerie things she was saying that her husband was taking a shower, and while I was in there, they had a little musical potty train chair.
Sure. And
so he's in there, and all of a sudden music starts playing, and he looks out, and it's that chair going for no reason. She had one of those, a child monitor. The baby's room was right next door. So she was in the master bedroom upstairs, and as she's sleeping in bed, she hears her baby crying through the monitor. So she's like, okay. So she gets up out of bed, goes in the room right next door. The baby's sound asleep. She's like, that's odd. So she goes back, lays back down in bed. Again, the baby's crying, fussing. She's like, what's going on? And she said before, how certain monitors will pick up from other houses. Mm-hmm. She said that's definitely her baby's voice. She went in there, again, the child's sleeping. So things like that were happening constantly to them.
Now, as I mentioned, we had an opportunity to go through with, Jerry went through the different rooms, and you had some stories to kind of share about a couple of the different rooms. Why don't you share a couple of the different stories you have throughout the
I'd love to, yeah, definitely. The same room I was mentioning about, which belonged to the current occupants in the house, it was actually their master bedroom. It was actually my best friend's bedroom also, and there was a lot of activity in their room. I remember him telling me a story that wasn't included. As I mentioned, a lot of the incidents in the book are based on what I witnessed.
Right, not exactly, but you use them, right.
Right, in the same reference. And he mentioned a story to me. When he first went in there, they must have been in there within the first few months. He's lying in bed, and he must have been maybe 11 or 12, and his door was ajar, and the moonlight was coming through the room, so he could kind of see shadows and stuff. The door opens, and he sees this dark shape walk in the room. And the shape sits down on the bed next to him. The bed indents down, and he feels it going. His stepfather was a big, large man, kind of like a burly biker Santa Claus. So he comes into the room, so he thinks, and he says, my friend looks at his dad and says, Dad, what's the matter, what's wrong? And the shape turns and looks down at him. Doesn't say a word. And he says, Dad, what's going on here? You're scaring me. Doesn't say another word. He's like, Dad. He goes, what's going on? So he turns on the light quickly and no one's in the room.
Oh, wow.
So that room was a hot spot. That was the upstairs bedroom. Again, the attic, that's another thing. I had the opportunity to go after this. I met the new occupants. She allowed me to bring in some paranormal investigative group. And we came in the house, we brought a medium, and we each had different personal experiences. But myself, when I went to investigate the attic, which had always been a hot spot, there was rumors that that a woman had committed suicide up in the attic. So I know from experience, from when I stayed the night there many a times, that I would always hear footsteps walking around in the attic.
Oh, wow.
And that was just creepy as hell. So that's the one room I wanted to check out during this investigation. So I was alone in the house. The other investigators were outside. I could hear them laughing out through the window. And so I get ready. It's one of those old-fashioned pull-string attic
Oh, okay.
drawers.
And then it
Right.
swings down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I step on the first step, and I'm getting ready to walk up, and right behind me by my ear, I hear, hey. And I stop, and I turn and look behind me. No one's there. No one's around. I'm like, that was definitely a male voice that was trying to get my attention. So I go up in the attic. I'm sitting up there. I got a flashlight, a camera. I'm scanning around, taking pictures. And I turn to my right, and about maybe 5 feet away from me is where the pull string is for the light bulb above. And I look, and it's hot up there. It's suffocating hot. There's no
Sure.
breeze. And I'm looking, and the string
Is moving
is
back and
swaying back and forth, easy. And I'm like, wow. So I take some pictures behind me, start heading down the attic, and I look, and of course the string is stationary. Nothing's going on there. So that was a situation. The basement also, we had a chance. We had a chance to communicate with the medium, and there was we able to contact a small child and a woman down there. We had a chance to ask them a series of questions by investigative devices, and that was just amazing. At one point, I'm asking these questions, and I've always been kind of a skeptical person. Even when I was younger, I always had to have concrete kind of proof. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm talking to something, maybe I'm not, I don't know. And all of a sudden, at one point, as I mentioned, it's hot down there, and I feel this cold hand, not necessarily fingers, but just this great
presence, right,
on my back that just goes all the way down, and I just immediately, and we're recording this at the time, we have a little camcorder there, and I just start shaking. I'm just chills all over. I'm smiling. I'm like, if this was you that touched me, and we have, as I said, we have these devices, and we're measuring it and communicating. It turns out this child was playing a practical joke on me, and just bizarre. While we're down there, the dryer turned on, started running by itself, and back to when my friend's family originally had it. One time they were up in the living room, and all of a sudden he's got his headphones on listening to music, and his little sister, maybe 6-7 years old, starts crying and screaming and saying, "You've got to hear this. You won't believe there's screams coming from the basement." So he puts his ear to the vent, and he can hear. He said it was the worst, god-awful. It sounded like an animal being killed and tortured. He said, as soon as he went down to the stairs to see what was going on, this cat comes flying, running up the stairs like it had been...
Oh, wow. Now, something I wanted to ask you, Barry, when I knew we were doing this interview and reading the book, you were friends with the young man and going through his life. At some point, it had to become where, okay, we're not moving out of the house. We have to coexist with this situation. Right. What did your friends say that was like the best coping mechanism, or the way or the reasons he found to just cope and just deal with it? Did it just become a thing that, okay, this is just part of our daily or weekly life, that something would happen? Yeah,
it's kind of, it goes along the line with, as far as the book, because it's the family coming together, uniting to fight this. And that's exactly what they did. It got to the point, it separated them. The husband and wife ended up separating. It was just the mother and the children.
Right, and the kids.
Yeah, and they were so afraid to stay upstairs, they were living in their living room. They were camped out there. that's the only room they felt safe in. And at certain points through the years, his coping mechanism was he was a teenage boy, and he kind of embraced it. You know, he was scared at first, and then it got to the point where it was kind of amusing that he had this house that was haunted. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's Barry. I really enjoyed the book. I think you really kind of hit the old Gothic feel of just a good horror, haunted mansions, haunted houses. Just that real good, creepy, the hair on the back of your neck stands up book. You've done a great job. I want you to have a chance. Tell the folks at home your website, because there's information on how to get the book and also stuff about your music and other things going on. So tell the folks at home your website real quick.
First, thank you so much for the props on that, and I appreciate the kind words, because growing up, and this is what really inspired me also, besides being a true an accounts of what I witnessed there, I'm just a huge horror fan. Growing up, my favorite authors were Dean Koontz, Stephen King. I love Halloween, The Exorcist. Still get unfortunately, my dad let me watch it. Well, he was asleep, and I got up in the middle of the night when 12 years old.
Exorcist still scares me to this day.
It's the only movie that totally petrifies me. I was 12 years old, and I turned on the TV, and here my eyes are huge watching this.
Yep.
So ever since then, I just love scaring people. So
well, you did a great job with this book. Let me tell you. Good job.
My website is just www.barrybrickey.com, and it has on there music. I composed a CD. I wrote all the music. I played on all the instruments, produced it myself, and I also perform in a classic rock band, and I do a solo acoustic tribute to the Beatles. I play in bars and restaurants, and people can go on my website, listen to my original music. They can find out information about my book. Yep, the book was available at Borders.
Unfortunately, Borders is gone. But you can get it. There's all kinds of information through your website.
Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's available on ebook. So if anyone wants to download it. Okay,
excellent, Barry. You're a great guest. Really happy to have you on today, and we look forward to having you on again. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it very much.
Well, the book was The Silence, folks. I know we got a lot of horror fans out there. Go pick it up. And the horror is going to continue on Cult Pop today. We're going to visit a scary haunted house, not the kind Barry was talking about, but with fun monsters and ghouls and all kinds of stuff running around. So stay tuned.